With the NFL Scouting Combine wrapping up this weekend and the draft right around the corner, I want you guys to let me know, who do you want the Giants to pick in the first round with pick number 25? Let me know down in the comment section. What up, Big Blue? You're watching Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. In today's show, we're going to go through the latest Mel Kiper mock draft, who he had the Giants picking at 25. We'll actually roll through all the picks so you can see who was on the board. We'll break down this prospect. And then on the tail end of the show, there are rumors coming out of the NFL Combine that the Giants could be one of the top destinations in a trade for Arizona Cardinals wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins. We'll break that down. Let's start, though, with the mock draft. This is what the first four picks looked like. You had Bryce Young going number 1, 2 QBs back-to-back, Stroud number 2, then Will Anderson number 3, Jalen Carter at number 4 with the Bears trading down, but maybe with the stuff that transpired this week, that could change. Then you had Will Levis, another QB, going in the top 5. I like Christian Gonzalez, the cornerback out of Oregon, a lot. And then Will McDonald to wrap up the top 8, a DN going to the Atlanta Falcons. Anthony Richardson going up to number 9. A lot of people thought maybe he could be on the board when pick number 25 comes rolling along. I'll let you know right now, he will not be. And in this one, he's going to be a Seattle Seahawk. Then you see the first wide receiver go off the board at pick number 14 to the New England Patriots, Jackson Smith-Njigba. We've talked about him a lot on the channel. Big fan of the type of player he is. Kind of reminds me of a little bit more athletic Juju Smith-Schuster. Bigger slot, can get open, has strong hands. And you see another offensive playmaker, Michael Mayer, going number 15. To the Green Bay Packers. Then you see another guy we've talked about, Joey Porter out of Penn State. Joey Porter Jr., I should say. Very physical corner, strong, likes to play press coverage, would be perfect in a Wink Martindale defense. Then you see Drew Sanders as well, a guy that a lot of people are calling Micah Parsons light here at the Chat Sports Studios. He's a good player. If he's at 25, I'd be cool with him being a New York Football Giant. This is where you see a run on receivers go. Jordan Addison at number 21 to the Los Angeles Chargers. Then Zay Flowers, the guy that literally 3 weeks ago was a third-round pick. Now you're seeing him go in the top 25 of a lot of mock drafts. He's one of my favorite receivers in this draft. So with the Giants at pick number 25 on the board, this is what my big board and the Chat Sports big board looks like, and this factors in need as well. The two receivers that I think could come off the board right here and be New York Football Giants are Quentin Johnson and Jalen Hyatt, two totally different receivers, but they make big plays, so they produce the same. One's just 6 foot, one's 6'4". Then you have O'Cyrus Torrence, the interior offensive lineman out of Florida. I'm a big fan of his. If the Giants feel like they need to go draft another early round offensive guard after they drafted 2 out of North Carolina last year, Torrance would be the best option. Or if you just want to shut down corner and a guy that could maybe be that one day, Cam Smith out of South Carolina could be that option. But Mel Kiper went with Quentin Johnston, the 6'4" wide receiver out of TCU to Big Blue. And you can't be mad at him. The Giants, they need a number 1 receiver on the outside. And a lot of people watching this video are saying, we need a guy that's 6'4", can play on the outside. We already got Wan'Dale Robinson, and that is what Quentin Johnson is, big play receiver. This is what Kiper had to say in depth about the prospect out of TCU. He said, I expect both quarterback Daniel Jones and running back Saquon Barkley to return. One of them likely will get the franchise tag, while the other could get a long-term deal, in which case General Manager Joe Shane should add more help to this offense. The Giants don't have a number 1 or number 2 wideout on their roster, and Wan'Dale Robinson, a second-round pick last year, is the most effective out of the slot. Johnston is the big, fast, and physical receiver they need. At 6'4", he is tremendous after the catch, breaking tackles, and running for long touchdowns. He understands how to use his frame to high point the ball in the air. Jones has improved every season, that being Daniel Jones, but he has never had a player who can make contested catches like Quentin Johnston. And my first reaction to this pick is Johnston is an interesting study because you hear Mel Kiper talk about how well of a high point guy he is, can go over the top of a DB and pluck the ball out of the air. But personally, I think that he needs to be better in that area. And we'll break that down with a full scouting breakdown, some pros and cons for the 6'4" wide receiver in a second. But first, I want to tell you guys about an awesome deal with St. Patrick's Day just around the corner. Get yourself a giant St. Patrick's Day themed t-shirt at chatsports.com/GiantsGreen. That's chatsports.com/GiantsGreen1, chatsports.com/GiantsGreen1. Got to put that one on the end because you want to be the one that gets this deal. That link is in the comments and description of today's video. When you look at what the 6'4" wide receiver did down in Texas Fort Worth this year, 60 receptions, 1,000 yards, 17.8 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns. Had some big plays in the playoffs against Michigan. Didn't do too well in the national championship against Georgia. Nobody did for TCU. Johnson is a big play wide receiver, and you could see that with the yards per catch. My concern is the limited route tree or the lack of routes that he's shown he's able to run on film. Is that partially because of the offense that they ran at TCU? Yes, but when you watch his tape, it's a lot of deep routes, it's a lot of posts and screens and short routes over the middle. Some pros, though. The size and speed, it is incredible, and he is an explosive freak. He's high cut and long limb. He looks like a prototypical wide receiver that you would make on Madden. Long, big, on the outside, and can stretch the field. For a guy that's 6'4", he has a unique start-stop ability. He's got a quick twitch about him that you don't see out of a lot of big wide receivers. Some things I think he needs to get better at. I think he telegraphs his deep routes a little bit. Just he's got a one-speed, full speed to him. I think he could be a little bit more deceptive, and he'll be a better route runner as life goes on in the NFL. He has to improve his ability to catch in traffic and needs to play like he's 6'4". Sometimes I think it goes up a little bit soft and has more of a finesse than powerful game to him, even though he's the most physical freak 9 times out of 10 when he's walked up with a DB. But do the Giants want to draft a wide receiver that's 6'4", doesn't really run routes all that well and doesn't create that much separation, or do they need a guy that's 6'4" just to be a jump ball threat and a red zone threat for Danny Dimes? I thought what Joe Schoen had to say in an interview recently at the Combine made a lot of sense on what he's looking for at the wide receiver spot. He said, Coach Brian Daboll wants guys that can separate. If you can separate, no matter how tall, short, wide, whatever it may be, as a quarterback, you prefer that. You'd rather throw to a guy that's open versus a guy that's being covered by a DB. If they can separate, we'll find a way to utilize them within this offense, whether it's outside or inside or in the slot. They come in all different shapes and sizes. We don't want to put everyone in one bucket because they lack height. If they've got speed and separation skills, then in our offense, that gives them more versatility in terms of game planning. Said this about quarterbacks. He said all QBs will tell you that the whole big possession wide receiver with a big catch radius, like any quarterback, your comfort level is going to be thrown to a wide receiver that has some separation. You've got a bigger window that is open. If you can separate, that's a big-time critical factor for us when evaluating wide receivers. And I 100% agree with Joe Schoen. I know there's a lot of people that'll be like, you already got Wan'Dale Robinson. He's 5'10". Are you going to go bring back Sterling Shepard? He's sub 6 foot. You need a big guy on the outside, but he told you. He wants people that run routes and can separate, and I have issues about the separation that Quentin Johnson, or the lack thereof, that he creates when he runs routes. So I want to ask you guys this question. Let's say all 4 of the top 4 wide receivers are on the board when the Giants pick comes calling at pick number 25. Which one of them would you draft? Would you draft Jordan Addison out of USC? Type JA. Do you like Zay Flowers out of Boston College? Type ZF. If you're like Mel Kiper, you think he's the guy? Type QJ, as in for Quentin Johnston. Or if you think Jackson Smith-Njigba out of the Ohio State University is the guy, type JSN for me down in the comment section. When I stack up what my top wide receivers in this draft are, when you zone in and focus on the top 4, I have Jordan Addison as my number 1 guy. I just like what he can do on the outside because he can play on the outside and he can play in the slot. He's, in my opinion, the best route runner in the draft. I also like Zay Flowers out of Boston College. This is someone that is undersized, but he can play all over the field, just like Joe Schoen talked about. I like what he's able to do. I think he separates at the top of his routes really well, and he just has a knack for getting open. A little bit smaller, so I have some concerns about that, but the dude's a damn good football player. Jackson Smith-Njigba is the biggest wild card for me, because when you look at the 2022 stats, he just really didn't play all that much. Only had 5 catches for 43 yards. Dealt with some injuries, but when he was speaking at the Combine, he said he's 100% healthy right now. And if you're getting 100% healthy Jackson Smith-Njigba, are you going to get the guy that went for almost 300 receiving yards back in the 2022 college football season. Zay Flowers had the most production out of all of these receivers last year, over 1,050 yards and 12 touchdowns. And you see guys like Addison as well, who had a lot of catches in yards. Any of these guys would be good fits, though, for the Giants because you just have a desperate need for someone that can win one-on-one matchups on the outside and be a big play threat. The Giants lacked a lot of big plays in the passing game last year, and either one of those guys would 100% be fine, but the order I showed you is the one I would go with. If Johnson's the only one there at 25, I might need to look somewhere else because I'm not sold on the receiver he might be. Could be totally wrong, but I definitely have some concerns. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel, though, because with the NFL draft coming up and NFL free agency next week, we're going to be putting out videos and sometimes multiple videos every single day. So go down right now, hit that big red sub button, and help us get to 25,000 subs on the channel. I want to close the show quickly with this DeAndre Hopkins rumor at the NFL Combine. It sounds like the trade talks are heating up, and the Giants are one of the teams that has been linked to the former All-Pro wide receiver. Johnny Venerable, not sure who that is. Do you know who that is, Rolly? Got a blue check mark, didn't pay for it. He's in the media world. He tweeted out, the word in Indy is keep your eyes on the following teams and picks in exchange for DeAndre Hopkins. He had the Patriots and their pick, sit 46, the New York Giants pick 57, the Kansas City Chiefs pick 63. He said, could be others that jump in and compensation could always vary, but these names keep coming up. Should the Giants trade their second round pick 57, for DeAndre Hopkins? Well, first, I think you got to look at what you got in your back pocket walking into NFL draft day. You got 4 picks inside the top 100. You got a pick 126 and 158. You got 5 picks in the top 125. Is it worth maybe trading one of those guys for a proven wide receiver? Yes, he's had some injury worries. Only missed time last year because of the steroid suspension. Hopefully he stays off those. But DeAndre Hopkins is still an elite player, and you might still get more comp picks from last year's free agency cycle when Evan Ingram left in free agency. So I want to ask you guys this question real quick. Would you trade pick number 57 for DeAndre Hopkins? Look, you need a wide receiver. Should they do it? Type T for trade, type P for pass. I would 100% do it. I don't think there's any receiver that you're going to get at pick 57 that at least is going to give you immediate production like DeAndre Hopkins. In 9 games last year, the guy still had 700 yards and 64 catches, and that was a couple of games playing with backup and third-string quarterbacks. I believe if he played 17 games with Daniel Jones, he could be an 85 to 90 to potentially 100 catch guy, over 1,000 yards and 6, 7, 8 touchdowns. Still a big play threat, and in my opinion, he's still an elite wide receiver 1 in this league. The thing is, people just kind of forget about him because out in Arizona, you really haven't been able to see what he's been able to do the last couple of years. Missed 6 games last year and missed 6 games this year. 1 year because of suspension, 1 because of injuries. I think it's worth it. You're not going to get anybody better in free agency. And when you have 5 picks inside the top 125 and you got a 3rd and 6 for Kadarius Toney, I think you got enough assets in the chamber to go make a trade for DeAndre Hopkins. I appreciate everybody for tuning in to today's show. 2 videos today, so stay on the lookout for another one. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hit me up on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_.